What lies at the heart of rural development in India?
Well, if I look at where the rural areas in India were, say, 5 decades ago and now, there's a lot of change. Some of the change can be seen in the data. For example, if you look at all-weather road connectivity, today more than 92.5% households have a Pakka road within a kilometer of their location, which means that mobility has changed from where it was earlier. If you look at housing, thanks to the initiatives on housing over the last 20-25 years now, accelerated with the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana program, especially in rural areas, 30 million houses being added over a period of 10-11 years. Clearly now, those living in kacha houses, visually you can see it in many states when you travel, in fact most of them now, that you don't get to see kacha houses that you used to see earlier. Likewise, a whole lot of other sections where change is noticeable in terms of, say, women's participation in panchayats. Already 1/3 legally in most states have to be women. Some states like Bihar and others have reserved 50% for women. Overall, of the 31 lakh women in panchayats, 46% are women. Now, I think, the important lesson out of all these changes that we've seen, women's collectives, for example, if you are traveling in rural India today, the most promising thing that you will see are women's collectives or the self-help groups under the Rural Livelihood Mission, known by different names in different states. The Kudumshri movement in Kerala, the Jivika movement in Bihar, every state, Ajivika movement somewhere else, the Tamil Nadu State Rural Livelihood Missions, self-help groups, all these are clearly indicating some transformation and change happening in terms of women's collectives, in terms of their participation in community action, and most importantly, in some better access to credit at the last mile. Clearly, the last 20-30 years, and with the digital public infrastructure, many states creating new sources of transfer of funds for women in particular. There are issues about freebies, but we have to notice some of these changes, the gas connections in households. Yes, there are a few households who still find it difficult to get a replacement gas cylinder because of the price. But change there is. All the data that we capture is showing this. And to top it all, if you look at the consumption expenditure of households, the recent rounds of consumption expenditure for the first time have reported the bridging of the gap between urban and rural. We also find that the demand for fast-moving consumer goods, the demand is holding in rural areas more than even in urban areas. So I think in many ways, the rural poor, there is change there. But the unfinished agenda is in terms of better schools in rural India, better quality of learning in schools, better health facilities, more professionals in rural areas, better urban-like infrastructure in rural areas. Quite a few areas, mission called the Urban Mission was started. We need to do much more in this space, create infrastructure on an unprecedented scale in growth points in rural areas, as the new towns, so to say, the census towns, whole lot of new activity with regard to basic functions in rural areas, keeping pace with the times. So on education, on health, on nutrition, on access to credit, we have improved, but the other sectors, while participation has gone up, our infant maternal mortality rates have come down. Women and girls are there in school right up to senior secondary level. But the quality of learning outcomes still leaves a lot to be desired. So we have to provide urban-like amenities in rural areas and high-quality education, healthcare, connectivity, in rural areas. Already a lot of the change is there thanks to the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana. But we can still do with more thrust on both social development as also infrastructure. And the strengthening of the local governments is one issue which I would like to flag, because as India transforms, our efforts on devolution of funds, functions and functionaries to local governments has not been of the order that is required. There are a lot of lessons here from states which have devolved, because we now have studies, the last one in 2023 done by the Reserve Bank of India, which points out that states that do not devolve do not get better human indicators. Or rather, the other way, states where devolution has taken place, they perform better on health and sanitation indicators. So clearly, the glass is half full, and we have a long way to go, but there have been some very significant achievements as well.